Okay, so now let's look at how you're going to generate the second order polynomial function using Newton's divided method. Okay, this is also known as the quadratic interpolation since we are using a second order polynomial function. Okay, so let's go ahead. So in this case, our n will be equal to 2. So for this reason, we are going to have what, 3 data points, okay, which we are going to consider to be x naught, y naught, okay, comma x1, y1, and then x2, y2. Okay, so these are our data points. Okay, and then let's not forget that y is equal to f of what, x, right? So therefore we can say that y naught is the same as what, f of what, x naught, right? And then y1 is the same as what, f of x1, and then y2 is equal to f of what, x2. Okay, so at this point you are going to assume a function, okay, which will pass through what, all these given data points, just like we did for the first order polynomial function. Okay, so let's look at the form of for this function that you are going to assume. Okay, let's look at how that function is going to be. So since this is a second order polynomial function, we're going to have what, f2 of what, x. Okay, and then this is going to be equal to b naught, okay, plus b1, okay, bracket open, x minus what, x naught, okay, bracket close, plus b2, bracket open, x minus what, x naught, bracket close, multiply what, x minus what, x1. Okay, so this is how this is the form of what the polynomial function, that's what you are going to assume. Okay, this will be the form of the polynomial function that you are going to assume. So you see that for the first order polynomial function we ended just here, and then for the second order polynomial function we added this part to it. I'm going to explain to you the reason why it is what second order polynomial function. Okay, so let's look at what you are going to do. So we are assuming that what, all the data points will fit into what, this function here. Okay, so if that's the case, that means that if I consider any x value, let's say if I consider x naught and I fit it into this function here, that means that what, I should get what, its corresponding what, y naught, because we are seeing that what, the polynomial function will fit what, the given data points. Okay, that's what this means. So what I'll do is that I will set x to be equal to what, x naught. Okay, so what that means is that if you put x naught into this function that you are assuming here, then you are going to get what, its corresponding what, y naught. Okay, so that's what that means. So we can say that f2 at what, x naught will be the same as what, f of what, x naught, right? And then that will be the same as what, y naught. This should be equal to b naught plus what, b1, and then wherever we see x we put x naught there. So we are going to have x naught minus what, x naught, right, plus b sub 2 multiplying what, x naught minus what, x naught, bracket close, multiplying x naught minus what, x1. Okay, all right, so now let's simplify this and see what you're going to do. So at this point you see that this will be equal to 0, and then this will also be equal to 0, right? So at the end you're just going to have f of what, x naught to be equal to b naught. Okay, this is what you are going to have. All right, so now let's take note of this. Okay, let's take note of this. All right, so now let's consider x to be equal to x1. Okay, and then substitute it into the function that we assumed. Okay, so you're going to have f2 of x1. Okay, that should be equal to what, f of what, x1, and then this should be the same as what, y1, and then this will be equal to b naught plus b1, okay, brackets open, x1 minus x naught, brackets close, plus b2 multiplying x1 minus what, x naught, okay, multiplying x1 minus what, x1. Okay, this is what we are going to have. Okay, so let's look at what will happen. Okay, so at this point we can clearly see that this will be equal to 0, right? So for that reason we are going to have f of x1 to be equal to b naught plus b1 multiplying what x1 minus what x naught, right? So what we do is that you are going to make b1 the subject. Okay, let's continue from here. You will have to make b1 the subject. Okay, so let's look at that. So we have f of x1, okay, equals b naught plus b1, okay, multiplying what x1 minus what x naught. Okay, so let's look at what you're going to do. So you're going to have this as f of x1 minus what b naught, and this should be equal to what b1 multiplying x1 minus what x naught. Okay, let's take what you have on the right hand side to the left hand side. So you are going to have b1 multiplying x1 minus x naught to be equal to f of what x1 minus what b naught. But we know that b naught is the same as what f of x naught, so we can bring that here, f of what x naught. So let's make b1 the subject now. So we're going to have divided by x1 minus what x naught. Okay, all this divided by x1 minus what x naught. Okay, so let's do the cancellation. So this will cancel out this, and then you're going to have b1, okay, to be equal to f of what x1, f of x1, f of x1 minus what f of what x naught. Okay, all this divided by what x1 minus what x naught. Okay, so that will be the equation for what b1. So you're going to do same for x2 also. Okay, so let's go ahead and then look at that. Okay, so now you are going to set x to be equal to what x2. Okay, that's going to be a little lengthy, so I had to free up some space. So you are going to say that what x should be equal to x2, right? So you're going to have f2 of x2, okay, and then this should be the same as what f of what x2, right, which will be the same as what y sub 2. Okay, so this will be equal to b naught plus b1, and then wherever we see x, we put x2 there, right? So bracket open, x2 minus what x naught, bracket close, plus b2, bracket open, x2 minus what x naught. Okay, bracket close, and then you're going to have x2 minus what x1. Okay, this is what you are going to have. Okay, so now let's do some simplification and see. So at this point, you are going to have f of x2, okay, to be equal to b naught plus b1 bracket open, x2 minus what x naught, okay, plus b2 bracket open, x2 minus what x naught, multiplying x2 minus what x1. Okay, so we know what b naught is, and then we know what b1 is, right? So we can do the substitution. So let's look at that. So you're going to have f of what x2 to be equal to b naught, which is now what f of what x naught, right? Plus b1, okay, b1, which is now f of x1 minus f of what x naught, divided by x1 minus what x naught. Okay, all this multiplying x2 minus what x naught, right? Okay, plus b2 bracket open, x2 minus what x naught, multiplying x2 minus what x1. Okay, so what we are doing is that we want to actually generate a padding, okay, which we can use to express the general form for the Newton's divided difference method. Okay, so what I'll do is that I'm going to make b2 the subject, but I'm going to do it in such a way that we are going to have a padding, okay, so that we can write it, we can have the general form for the Newton's divided difference method. Okay, so let's look at how I'm going to do this. Okay, so now let's look at what I'm going to do. Okay, so let's go ahead. All right, let me write this in black. Okay, so what I'll do is that let's focus on, let me put this in black rectangle. Okay, let's focus on just this part. Okay, and then look at what you are going to do. So we have f of x naught, okay, plus bracket open, f of what x1, okay, minus f of what x naught, okay, all over x1 minus what, x naught. Okay, multiplying x2 minus what, x naught, right? This is what we have. Okay, by this point, instead of x2 minus x naught, I'm going to write this as x2, okay, minus what, x1 plus what, x1 minus what, x naught. Okay, which is the same as what I had earlier on. Okay, I just did create and destroy there. Okay, because you know that what, minus x1 plus x1 just give us 0, and then at the end we are going to have what, x2 minus what, x naught again. Okay, so now let's look at what you are going to do. So we are actually going to do some multiplication. Okay, so let's look at how I'm going to do that. So you're going to have f of x naught plus, okay, bracket open, f of what, x1, okay, minus f of what, x naught, all over x1 minus what, x naught. Okay, multiplying x2 minus what, x1. Okay, this is what you are going to have, plus, then you're going to have plus f of what, x1 minus f of what, x naught, divided by what, x1, okay, minus what, x naught. Okay, this will also multiply x1 minus what, x naught here. Okay, so let's go to happen. So for this side, you can see that this will cancel out this, right? So at the end, we are just going to have f of what, x naught plus f of x1, okay, minus what, f of what, x naught, all divided by x1 minus what, x naught, okay, bracket close, multiplying what, x2 minus what, x1, okay, plus f of what, x1 minus what, f of what, x naught. Okay, this is what you are going to have. Okay, so you see that this will actually cancel out this, right? So at the end, this is what we are going to be having. Okay, so let's substitute this back to where we got to. Okay, let's substitute this back to where we got to. All right, so let me write that down. Okay, so let me actually get some space. Okay, all right, so now we're going to have f of what, x2. Okay, we're going to have f of what, x2 to be equal to, now for the one that I've circled in black, you're not going to bring it again, we rather bring what I have here. Okay, so you're going to have f of x1, okay, minus f of what, x naught, okay, divided by x1 minus what, x naught, right? Okay, this will be multiplying x2 minus what, x1, okay, plus f of what, x1, right? Then we can add plus the b2, okay, multiplying what, x2 minus x naught, right, times, okay, times x2 minus what, x1, right? This is what we have now. Okay, so now let's put our focus on this. Okay, so let's look at how you're going to make b2 the subject here. All right, so let's continue. So at this point we have f of what, x2, okay, to be equal to, bracket open, f of x1 minus what, f of what, x naught, divided by x1 minus what, x naught, right? Multiplying x2 minus x1, okay, bracket close, plus f of x1 plus b2, bracket open, x2 minus what, x naught, bracket close, multiplying what, x2 minus what, x1. Okay, this is what you have. So you want to make b2 the subject. Okay, so let's look at what I'm going to do. So I'll take this f of x1 to the left hand side. Okay, so I'm going to have f of x2 minus what, f of what, x1, right? Okay, so this will be equal to f of x1 minus f of what, x naught, divided by x1 minus what, x naught. Okay, so this will be multiplying x2 minus what, x1 and then you're going to have plus what b2 bracket open x2 minus what x naught bracket close x2 minus what x1. Okay, so at this point let's divide every term by what x2 minus what x1. Okay, so you're going to have divided by x2 minus x1. Okay, all this divided by x2 minus what x1, and then here you're going to have divided by x2 minus what x1. Okay, so this will cancel out this, and then this will also cancel out this, right? So let's look at what we are going to have. We are going to have f of what x2 minus f of what x1, right, over x2 minus what x1, and then this will be equal to f of what x1 minus f of what x naught, okay, divided by x1 minus what x naught, right? And then this will be added to b2 bracket open x2 minus what x naught. Okay, this is what you are going to have. So let me rewrite this. Okay, let me write this as b2 multiplying x2 minus what x naught. Okay, this should be equal to, okay, f of x2, okay, minus what f of what x1, right, divided by x2 minus what x1, okay, minus f of what x1 minus f of what x naught divided by x1 minus what x naught. Okay, so this is what you have now. So now I'm going to divide all the terms by what x2 minus what x naught. Okay, so I'm going to have all divided by x2 minus what x naught. Okay, so this is what you are going to have. This will cancel out this. Okay, so let's look at what you are going to get for b sub 2. Okay, so we can say that b2, okay, b2 will be equal to f of what x2 minus what f of what x1, okay, over x2 minus what x1, okay, minus f of x1 minus what f of what x naught over x1 minus what x naught. Okay, all this divided by x2 minus what x naught. Okay, so this will be what b2. So I'm sure by now you are seeing some padding. Okay, but let's leave that for now. When it gets to the part where you are going to talk about the general form of the polynomial function for the Newton divided difference method, we are going to look at the padding that I was talking about. Okay, so this will be our b2. Okay, so with this understanding, let's solve an example using the third order polynomial form. Okay, so I'm going to write this in the general form so that we see how everything is going to be. Okay, so now let's write down the general form. We have the general form for the second order to be, that's f2 of x, okay, and then this is equal to b naught, right, plus b1 bracket open x minus what x naught plus b2 bracket open x minus x naught x minus what x1, right? This is the general form. Okay, but we know what b1, b naught, and then b2 is now, right? So you can just do the substitution back. So you're going to have f2 of x, okay, to be equal to b naught is now f of what x naught, right, plus b1, which is now f of what x1, minus f of x naught over what x1 minus what x naught, right, plus, okay, sorry, multiplying x minus what x naught, okay, plus b2, and then, so we know what b2 is, right? We know b2 to be f of x2 minus what f of what x1, okay, over x2 minus what x1 minus f of x1 minus f of what x naught over x1 minus what x naught, right? All this divided by x2 minus what x naught, right? So this will be multiplying x minus x naught and also x minus what x1, right? So this will be our general form. Okay, and then mind you, you are going to know f of x naught, you are going to know f of x1, and then you're going to know x1 x naught, you know f of x2 also, and then you know x2. The only value that you not know will be what? X, and then that will be the value that we will have to what? Find. Okay, so let's take an example. So I'm going to use the same data from the previous example that we saw. Okay, so I'm going to bring the table, and then we are going to use three data points from the table. So let's look at that.